Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello, everybody. Welcome to one more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. And this week, joining us from Spain is Miguel Moro. Hey, Miguel. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for letting me be in here participating with you. It's a real pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. So Miguel, as an Agile practitioner, his passion is to delight customers using Agile practices and lean methodologies in development teams to explore the best alternatives to deliver in an iterative and incremental way with the continuous value of flow as fast as possible and with innovative solutions. He does that by focusing on high-performance teams and happiness at work. So, Miguel, that was a short intro. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you end up becoming a Scrum Master?
Well, I have been working since a long time ago, working as project coordinator in companies with people from different areas and have always been working with handling big closed projects that never came to the end in time and in money. So in 2012, I moved to a different company that they were working in Scrum. And well, when I had read before about it, but when I saw this working, I didn't want to work in the old way anymore. So I started to read and to learn about Scrum, Lean, Agile, and started to try to help the development teams to work in this different way that was new for me and was, of course, the only way since then.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that story quite familiar, having been a project manager myself and discovering Scrum a few years after I was frustrated with the fact that projects were late and not really delivering what was expected, and lots of discussion about very small details in specification documents.
That is
So I totally can feel that. But tell me a little bit more. What was the thing in Scrum that just clicked it for you?
Well, for me, it was the idea of not having a project, as I have knew a project until then. So the possibility of deliver just a very small part and have quick feedback, and then decide what was the next steps, which were the next steps, or if you need what was the part in which the customer was most interested to deliver first. For me, it was amazing to have happy customers and to have them collaborating with you, which for me was never seen before. So I like it very much to be in contact with customers and to be working together with them and to have them happy instead of having them complaining because something was not working or not designed as specified. So it was a total change for me that was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And one has to say that this focus on customer doesn't necessarily come only from using Scrum, but typically companies that use Scrum are more focused on customer, if nothing else, because of course there's the feedback loops that Scrum brings that the old school project management methodologies don't have until quite late in the process. So Miguel, once we understand a little bit more about your context, I think the interesting question, though, is, of course, you did that transition, right? You came from project coordinator. You also came from another company.
Yeah.
So different culture, different background. And when you get to an Agile organization and start to work with your first Scrum projects, of course, the question comes, all right, but what's different and what's not working? Because we have a lot to learn, especially those of us who started from project management background. So tell us a story of a moment where you were just in that learning process. We're, of course, talking about the Fail Monday story, a story about failure, because we want to learn from that story. So tell us that story, Miguel.
Yeah, well, it was, as I told you, I was very enthusiastic when I started to work in this way. And I was promoted. I asked to be promoted to Scrum Master. And when I had a team to work with, to collaborate with, at the beginnings were my biggest failure, of course, because I tried to apply 100% following rules of Scrum, for example, and that was a complete error, of course, because I understood a bit later that this is not a Scrum at all. All the Agile or Lean ideas comes from learning and trying, and if you follow like rigid rules, even if they came from Agile, it's a mistake because it may work with some squad or teams, but will not work with others. So you need to first understand your team, understand your product, understand your customers, and then you can follow the ideas or take into account frameworks, but then you need to work and adapt with your team. I had problems because the team were continuously questioning my decisions.
Can you give an example of that?
Yeah, for example, I wanted to do the planning, or I wanted to follow. Let me think of a concrete example. Yes, I proposed it. For example, how the different team members should collaborate together based on their skills, and so on. And I proposed, okay, you can work with this other guy to do this part. And they told me, why? I think I will better work with this other guy because he's going to teach me how to do this new thing for me. I will be more interested. And so I learned very quickly that we need to count on their decisions and to make them to participate and to propose. So ideas from Scrum or from Lean or from Agile are very good to know the theory, but the theory itself is not all. So you need to.
That's actually a very important point. So let me see if I understood you correctly. So you quickly realized that two team members needed to work together in order for something to be completed, some task or some deliverable, whatever that was. And then because you understood that, you went to the team and say, hey, you need to work with this other person in order to complete this deliverable or whatever, right? But instead of saying, oh, okay, yes, I will do that, they said, no, I don't want to work with that person. I want to work with this other person. Like, what was going on? Like, now from the benefit of hindsight, what do you think that team member or those team members were thinking, and why were they first, why were they comfortable even to tell you that, of course? And then the second is, what was going on? Like, what did they know that you did not know at that time?
Well, I had more theory than them, but what I was trying to do is to finish user stories as soon as possible, just taking into account the knowledge of each of them. But they didn't care to finish user stories early. What they were interested was in having better knowledge in order to be more flexible and to be more efficient in the future. So if someone had to work in something that they didn't know by now, in the future they will have this knowledge so that the team will be more flexible, or if the team members change, they will not miss that knowledge. So they were very interested in learning, in having the possibility of working in different areas, and I think that is one of the factors that make a team high performer or successful, to have the initiative or the let's say the ambition of having the knowledge, of not having some person that is key, or you cannot do some work if someone is not in the squad that sprint. So I think that this comes with the people, and if these people doesn't have this initiative, you need to raise it on them. So you need to, well, one of the to be not having different roles in the team. So you need to, if the tester only do the testing, you have like a waterfall. You have the development and then the testing. But if the tester can develop some user stories or collaborate from the beginning in the code, meanwhile the developers are coding, is much more flexible. They get more knowledge, and I think it's key to share that knowledge.
That's one of the things, like sometimes the team is aiming for something that we don't understand, right? Like, and in this case, it was sharing skills and being able to learn and make the team more flexible. Some other times it might be something else. But this idea that the team knows something that we don't know, it's something that is very important for us as Scrum Masters, because sometimes it comes up very obviously in just like you described it, right? The team member will say, hey, I don't want to work with that person. I want to work with this other person. But other times it will come up in ways that are not so obvious. And if we're not paying attention, we can actually detract from the team's own development, right? Like we can affect their performance by trying to dictate how they work instead of, hey, I see that we're not completing user stories as quickly as we should. I think this is a problem. Do you think this is a problem? Right? And starting from that perspective, because the team might say, no, I think that our biggest problem is that we can't help each other and we need to share knowledge, right?
Yeah.
And if the team thinks that's the problem, then they're right, because they are the ones doing the work. Now, we might disagree with it, and we might say, hey, have you considered the perspective of the product owner? Have you considered the perspective of this other team who gets work from us and whatever? Like, we can bring those different perspectives to the table. But ultimately, even though it might be hard, it's our job to understand that the team knows what they are optimizing for. We just need to make it obvious so that we can talk about it and collaborate on it.
Yeah, I think you are right. I think that, but it also depends. It's true that it depends in the company or in the area you are working, because and depends on the moment you are. Maybe there is something that is really important and urgent for a customer, and in that moment you cannot afford to share knowledge in that specific moment.
But the team needs to agree, right? Because if the team says, no, that is not urgent, then you still have a problem.
Yeah, but that should not happen always. So it's something that can happen sometimes. That is normal that in any concrete moment you have something urgent to fix. But the general idea is that the team should be aware of the needs of the customers. I think something is not very frequent is that developers and customers know each other and know the developers know why they are doing this and what the customers are going to improve with this development and why they need it. And the other part is customers to understand the situation of the team. I think that is also important, because in that part also they may help to propose what to develop in the product. Or I have seen even teams in which a customer was part, and some temporary moments of the team. They came to the daily, they proposed what to do in certain circumstances. And it was amazing because they understand each other. They know each other and they collaborate. We know we have the role of the PO that is like in the middle of the two. But in some cases, it is really useful, and it is amazing to see how customers can understand the team and how the team can understand the customers.
And we'll talk more about teams tomorrow, and perhaps also how to create that connection.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that story, Miguel.
No problem.
Monday is about what we learn from our obstacles and our failures. But tomorrow is Team Tuesday here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. We explore teams and their journeys, the habits they develop that threaten their performance, how each of our guests helped their teams evolve, and the one key lesson they learned from that experience. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.